Roger Rodriguez.
Why are you giving your first name?
It was my dad's middle name.
And what significance does that have?
For me, a lot. Growing up, I looked up to my dad a lot, and I was really proud to carry his name.
Where were you born?
I was born in Miami, Florida.
And where did you grow up?
Grew up a little bit in Puerto Rico, first 8 years of my life, and then after that, grew up in Miami.
And what was it like in Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico was great. It was we all our family was there initially, and grandparents, cousins. So we had a really great time growing up there.
Who was more strict growing up, your mom or your dad?
Day to day, it was my mom. But whenever my dad got really upset, I think that was the strictest point.
Do you have like a vivid memory of something you did that you were disciplined for?
Yeah, when I was about 7 years old, my dad had a sharpener, an electronic sharpener, to sharpen pencils in his office, and I thought it would be a good idea to stick crayons in there, and it jammed up the sharpener. I remember getting punished pretty bad for that.
Did you grow up with your grandparents?
Yes, my grandparents both. My grandparents on my mom's side lived in my house, and my grandmother's sister, my great aunt, lived with us growing up.
And what was that like? How did that like change the dynamic of your day-to-day life?
It was great. Now looking back at it, I still remember my grandmother cooking us breakfast every morning, café con leche, which was great. And there was always somebody home. There was always somebody home to help with anything that we needed. So I appreciated the fact that we had that growing up.
Did you have any heroes or specific role model growing up that shaped you to be who you are today?
Yeah, looking back at it now, I would say my dad probably had the biggest influence, on me. He was a really, really hard worker. When I was younger, I didn't appreciate as much, the sacrifices that he made for the family. But, he was somebody that came over from Cuba with really nothing and was able to provide, for a family of 7 kids. I'm one of 7, and for my grandparents and my great aunt. So I look up to him a lot for having the ability to have done that and all the sacrifices that he made to do that.
And what kind of responsibilities did you have, like around the house and all that growing up?
Around the house, really, you just had to keep after yourself, take care of your own things, make sure you were picking up after yourself, and then helping out in any way we could, whether it was taking out the garbage or lawn work, whatever needed to be done. There was a lot of us, so usually it was a lot of hands, a lot of duties split apart. But for us, for the boys, there's 2 of us. It was mostly the garbage and kind of heavy lifting around the house.
And what about like outside the household, like any extracurricular activities or just other things you had to take care of?
Not specifically, but all of us started working really young. Like I said, it was a big house and a lot of demands, and financially we weren't well off. So a lot of us, as we grew up and were old enough to work, we started working. I started working when I was 15, on and off, and then got my first real job at 16 years old when I could drive myself to work. So those were kind of outside the house ways to contribute.
And what was your first job, and what did you like or not like about it?
So I played baseball growing up, and the coach for my little league team worked at the airport loading containers. So we had every now and then we had an opportunity to go and help load containers, for petty cash. So that was great wherever we can get that. It was hard work, so I really appreciated. Again, as I grew up, I appreciated education more and more because it was tough work to be able to have to do that every day. And then after that, I worked in kind of retail in Walgreens, the first place that would give me a job right around the corner from my house.
And did you go to university or college, and how did you like decide what you wanted to study, and how did that impact like your job today?
Yeah, I did. I went to both college and graduate school. In my house, there was never really a choice. My family, my mom specifically, was big on education as a way for us to better ourselves. So we did. All of us went. All 7 of us, have graduate level degrees, which I'm really proud of. And in terms of how I selected my my career, I think it kind of selected me. You know, I thought I was going to be a physical therapist, and I had to wait a year to get into school. And that year that I had to wait, I interned at a HMO, a health maintenance organization, and really got an appreciation for the administrative side of healthcare, and that's kind of what I've been doing ever since.
And do you think you're like your father or unlike him, and how does he, like the way he was with you, impact how you are with your kids?
I think different. We're alike in many ways, but I think it was a different time, different generation. The way that, you know, I was raised, I think it's, you know, a little bit different, you know, in terms of whether it's disciplining or the realities of our life, you know, growing up, given, you know, their hardships. They came over as exiles, you know, into this country, really with nothing. So our upbringing was a little bit different than what I've had, and ultimately what my kids have had. So I think principled, really a lot alike, but in terms of how we raised our kids, how I raised my kids, maybe a little bit different, just because of the generational differences.
What do you think is like the most prestigious honor that you've achieved, or like the highest honor that you've achieved?
Yeah, so been fortunate, you know, to have a lot of success, you know, on the professional front. So I was really proud, you know, at 40 years old, to be given an opportunity to be the chief executive officer of a company. I think from a professional perspective, that's something that I'm really proud of, and that I had the ability to achieve at a very young age. But really, I think personally, you know, having built a great family, I'm really proud of that, probably more so than anything else.
Do you have any like specific hobbies or quality or like interests that you do for fun, or like watch sports, anything like that?
Yeah, I do. I played sports growing up, so I love watching sports. You know, I'm a big sports fan. Try to cheer for the hometown teams. And in terms of what I do for fun, you know, also sport-wise, I love playing golf. I think it's a great sport, and something that I try to do, you know, as often as I can.
What's your most cherished family tradition?
Oh, for me, Christmas time, Thanksgiving, Christmas time was the best. Really, anytime that the family got together and that we got together for a gathering, I think I remember that most vividly and most fondly. So anytime there was a get together at my house, which there was no small get togethers given how big the family was, I really remember those times fondly.
What have you enjoyed the most about your life so far?
Family relationships, you know, my kids, I think, you know, my siblings. So I think really all the relationships that I've had, you know, specifically family and friends, I think I've got most fulfillment from that.
Can you name like a specific like proudest moment or happiest moment of your life?
I'll name three. I mean, the birth of my three kids, you know, were probably some of the happiest moments of my life.
What do you feel like is your purpose in life? Like what you're here to do, and have you fulfilled that purpose? Or
yeah, I think for me, I love that I'm able to provide for my family. So I think that's a form of service, you know. So I love serving others and helping others in any way I can. I think I'll continue to do that, you know, whether it's, you know, what I did in my personal life with my family, my kids, my wife, whether what I did with my siblings, trying to help and support in any way I could, my mother, that's still alive, my in-laws, and I think professionally, same, from a leadership perspective, that's a lot of what I do. I don't think, you know, you're ever done with that. So I don't think there's a final chapter, hopefully not yet, you know, not yet written. So I'm looking forward to continuing to do that.
awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, what is your name?
Hannah Rodriguez.
So, who was more strict growing up, your mom or your dad?
My mom.
Why?
My dad would work during the day, so I was with my mom more, so she ended up being the disciplinarian.
Do you remember like any specific thing you did like in your childhood, like anything you got in trouble for and like disciplines?
Probably one of the first things I got in trouble for was that I put my hand on a lit candle after she told me not to. And that one I got in trouble for, but I mean, obvious why, but yeah.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have one sister and one brother.
What memories do you have like each of them when you were growing up?
With my sister, it was more, I have a lot more memories with my sister, with us two and our cousin. We grew up together because we're all very close in age. With my brother, it was more of a, like he was my baby because he's 6 years younger than me.
Did you have any heroes or role models growing up, and why?
Growing up, I definitely looked up to probably my mom and my aunt the most. My aunt on my dad's side. She didn't have any kids really, so she treated me like her baby and her kids. So I looked up to her a lot.
Was there any like specific thing you wanted to do growing up? Like, you know, like what do you want to be when you grow up, like that?
Growing up, I always loved art. I wanted to do something creative wise, and ended up in architecture, I guess. So, I mean, I kind of went that route.
So what was your graduation from high school like, and just high school in general?
High school was I went into it kind of thinking I was gonna play volleyball for years. I didn't really think much about college during high school, like until later on. Getting into high school freshman year, I didn't really think much about where would I end up after. And then ended up not playing volleyball any of my years with high school and getting into art more, and then kind of letting that guide me through like towards the end of my high school experience. Graduating was a great time. I loved kind of that last year, everyone coming together. We were 200 girls, so it was like, that was a good experience.
Did you go to university or college, and how did you decide what you wanted to study?
So I decided what I wanted to study because we had just bought a house and the plans were everywhere, and that's kind of how I realized that I was leaning towards architecture. So I just kind of looked at different universities that had great architecture programs. And I was very insistent on leaving and going out of state and taking that route. But then when I got into my reaction was a little bit more, it was a little bit more emotional than what I expected. And I realized that that's really where I needed to end up. And I did. And I graduated from recently, and I don't regret making that decision at all.
And what was your first job, and how do you think that impacted you into
my first job was working at Nordstrom as a sales associate. That 100% helped me just deal with different situations. I dealt with a bunch of different people, and communicating yourself well and doing that to a customer, I think is a super important lesson to learn. I definitely think that everybody should, at one point in time, should have a job like that to start off the workforce.
Do you feel like you're in any ways similar to your mother or your father? And why?
Yes, I do think I have the same mannerisms and compassion as when it comes to my mom. We kind of think very similarly when it comes to a certain type of drive and a certain type of way that I approach work. My mom has it, but it's also very similar to my dad's sister and my dad, that the way that we approach work is just very different than I think the norm.
Do you have any hobbies or special interests outside of architecture?
I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, but I love art. I also love photography, but it does go hand in hand with architecture. But those are things that I thoroughly enjoy doing.
What do you do for fun in your off time?
In my off time, I like to completely disconnect from work, in the sense of I go and hang out with friends that I don't work with, that don't do the same things that I do. So that I'm able to disconnect and have, my work life and my social life and be completely separate.
Do you have like any birthdays that you were like not really excited about, like it didn't really matter to you, and like why?
I love birthdays. I love celebrating birthdays. I love celebrating other people's birthdays a little bit more. I think when it comes to birthdays that I really didn't was probably, I don't know, maybe my 17th. I feel like 17 is not such a monumental year, but also turning 17 kind of kicked off senior year of high school. So, I mean, they all go hand in hand. I don't know if there's one birthday I just didn't really care about. I mean, that's the only age I can kind of think. 17, no one really,
Yeah.
nothing really happens at 17.
If you could go back to any specific age, which one would it be and why?
I think definitely 18, and that's just because that's the year that I started college. A year of a lot of exciting things happened. Like, I mean, I had graduated high school at 17, but turning 18 and then starting off this new experience, meeting new people, and getting to experience all these different things was amazing. So for me, 18 has been so far my favorite age.
Over time, how have you changed your outlook on like people and life in general?
I think growing up, you just kind of automatically assume whoever has been there the longest is the best person to be in your life, and that's not the case. I think over time, I've learned to value myself and just realize that maybe just because one person's there for a very long time doesn't exactly mean that they have your best interests at heart. So I think taking that and then kind of reevaluating constantly the people around me and like how are they benefiting me, and I think that's a very important way to look at life. Definitely something my 18-year-old self had just began learning, so it's cool to see the difference in the way that I view that.
If you had the power to solve one specific problem in the world, what would it be?
I think we need more love in the world. If I had the power to change kind of the way that people view the world and the hatred that kind of, there's a lot of anger and angst that people automatically assume with the world, and if we just looked at the world in a different lens of like love, I feel like we'd be a lot more unified.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
What is your name?
My name is Pia Cortez.
Where were you born?
I was born in Miami, Florida.
Were there any events growing up that impacted you significantly, or where you lived, or where you grew up?
I think my time in Rome as a pre-K or Montessori age, that really impacted me because I got to travel with my mom because of her job. I think that's where my interest in art and architecture started. So that was really impactful for me, going and traveling abroad.
Who was more strict, your mom or your dad?
My mom, definitely.
And why do you think that?
I think she's just more controlling, I guess. She's always likes to be in control of things, and she's not really a go with the flow kind of person, so everything has to be a certain way for her. And then my dad's more chill, I guess.
Is there anything that you got in trouble for as like a little kid that you remember very vividly?
I'm not sure if I remember. I mean, I remember falling. I used to, every time I fell when I was little, I would never fall with my hands. I would always fall like face first. So I remember getting in trouble for that because I would always have like huge bumps on my head because I would never fall with my hands.
Who was your hero or role model as a child?
I think actually both my parents have been huge role models for me in different ways. You know, I see how hard both of my parents are really hard workers, so that's really inspired me and my work ethic as a high schooler, 18-year-old. So, yeah.
Growing up, what did you want to be?
Honestly, it's kind of changed a million times. When I was little, I wanted to be a pilot like my dad. Then I wanted to be a dermatologist. And then now I know that I want to be an architect. So.
What's the significance of your name? And is there like a specific reason why your parents picked that name?
So I'm Pia, my name. I'm named after Padre Pio, which is a saint. He's an Italian saint. And since my mother was always traveling to Italy for her job, she has a really strong connection to Italy, even though we're not Italian, but you know, she just has a really strong connection there. She came across this saint, Padre Pio, and so she decided to name me after him and I'm pretty sure like what I've learned, whatever, that it means like pious, so like calm, always wanting to keep peace between people. So
If you could have 3 wishes, what would they be?
I would wish for health, number one, always. I would wish for I would wish for health. I would wish for happiness. For everyone, but for me and the people I love, and for peace.
Growing up, did you live a lot with your grandparents, or did they have any impact on your life growing up?
So I've always lived in this house, which is the backyard connects to my grandparents' house. So they moved in, I think probably when I was like 2, to that house back there. So, I was always used to crossing the gate that separates our yards and just being at my grandparents' house. So it's kind of like they live with me, but not really. I think what's impacted me, their presence, just having them there in my backyard, has been learning the language, Spanish. I cross over there and I don't speak English anymore, so it's all Spanish. It's connected me back to my roots in the Dominican Republic, their cooking, what they watch on TV, the music they listen to on the radio. So when I go over there, I feel like I'm in the DR, and then I come back here and it's like I'm back in Miami.
What's your typical day like your routine, or just what you do every day?
So my typical day is I wake up in the morning, probably later than I should for school. I have breakfast. I go to school all day. I come back. I probably have like 30-45 minutes where I change and I have a little snack before I go to diving. I usually go to diving 4 times a week, so Monday through Thursday for 2 hours. So then I'll come here at around 7. I'll come back home at around 7. I'll take a shower, have dinner, and then start my homework. And then on Fridays I'll just hang out with my friends. Yeah.
Do you have any hobbies or special interests outside of school?
So outside of school, I love taking pictures. I think that's like something that's grown recently, but it's something I've kind of always loved to do. I love taking pictures. I love painting. I love drawing. I love fashion also. So like even looking at clothes online, looking at clothes in magazines. I really love doing that. I think it's a great way to spend my free time. I love watching movies too. It's like my favorite.
Who are some people that you trust and depend on the most?
The people I trust and depend on the most are definitely my parents. And I'm really grateful to have that relationship with them where I know they're always going to support me, and I know that I can trust them obviously with anything. So I really look to them when I need any help.
Do you have like a family tradition that you do every year that you cherish the most?
Family tradition. Well, one of them is around this time, Christmas time, we do novenas with like our family, a little bit of the extended family as well. I think it's like maybe we do it like 5 nights in the month of December before the coming of Christmas, and we just get together as a family, pray, have dinner, good food, and just share quality time together.
Are there any times in your life that you remember more vividly than others, like a specific memory even?
A specific memory that I have?
Or just any time that you remember like more vividly than others?
I don't really have. I don't have specific time. I mean, actually I do. I think my childhood, maybe like the ages from 7 to like 10, 11. Those are ages I remember pretty vividly.
In a positive way? Or?
Yeah, definitely.
And why is that?
I just think it was a great time, you know, the innocence, the just going to school, having fun, seeing friends, and not having the stress. I remember vividly my dad always picking me up from school, going to get pizza, him taking me to diving or swimming, and it was just, I remember it being really fun.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years, or where would you like to be in 10 years?
So I'd be 28. In 10 years, I see myself, well, being out of college, obviously, having a degree, a bachelor's of architecture degree, hopefully having my license in architecture, and maybe working at a firm and possibly starting to begin my own firm, starting to build that, which is a goal that I have, starting my own architecture firm.
Hi, how you doing?
Oh, what's your name?
Liliana Maresma.
And is there any significance to why you've been named Liliana Maresma?
Well, because that's my married name. My maiden name is Suarez, but my first name is Liliana for my two grandmothers. The first one is Lilia, my father's side, and Anna, my mother's side, and the two names together, Liliana.
And is there any significance like that you feel from carrying that name?
Oh my God, for me it's so important that I don't allow anybody to call me Lilian, because then I feel like it's not me. So you either call me Liliana, you may call me Lily, but either Liliana, and the idea that my mother and my father named me like that was to carry their names, and I love them so much that I don't want that name to be full around, because I love them. So for me, I'm very proud to carry that name.
Where were you born?
In Cienfuegos, Las Villas, Cuba.
And what significance has that carried in your life?
Well, my father-in-law used to say that he has never met more proud people than the people from Cienfuegos, because anywhere that you go, they would come forward and say, "Hey, I am from Cienfuegos." And you know, after he said that, I really felt like, oops, that's true. Because anywhere that I am, if I can say I am from Cienfuegos, I will do it. So we are very proud of our heritage. Yes, we are.
And how was growing up in Cuba?
Growing up in Cuba, well, I was very privileged. First of all, because I was surrounded by my family. And my family gave everything, everything that I am is because of my family, which I have tried to do with my own family now, my children and my grandchildren. And I loved it. I was in a private school, an all-girls school, Colegio Apostolado, and I also took lessons for piano lessons, and I took lessons for sewing, and it was my grandmother was very part of me, teaching me how to do all of those things, and very artistic and very crafty, and my mother was too, because my mother was a home economics teacher, or something similar to that. So that's why I was so influenced by music and craft and sewing and all of that.
Which parent was most strict growing up, your mom or dad?
Definitely my mother. Oh yeah, no, my father. My father one time he touched my knee to admonish me for something that I had done. I felt like I was going to die, and my father it broke my heart to think that he thought that I was a bad girl, which I was not. I was mischievous. I was very mischievous. But my mother, oh my gosh, my mother was so strict. Like everything had to be done the way that it had to be done, and I had to be a girl, a proper girl, and you know.
Do you
That's where you
remember
go.
anything like that you did wrong, or something that you got punished for by one of your parents?
My brother, who was older, he was always teasing me. And I remember this day in particular, the day of my father, the story with my father, that I had very long hair, and I have combed my hair, and I thought that I looked beautiful, and I put a hair bun in my hair, and I was walking very proud with that hair like that, and my brother comes running to me, grabs the buns, and going like it was an accordion. I got so upset that I ran after him and kicked him, but with anger. And my mother immediately told me, sit in that chair and you're not going to move there until your father comes home. So that's the day that my father comes and he sees me and says, why are you sitting in that chair? I wouldn't say why, because I was such a good girl to my father, and I had to admit that I had not been a good girl. So my mother comes and says, she kicked her brother. Now, I couldn't defend myself to say why I had done it, because actually I had kicked him. So my father, that's the day that he went and touched my knee and says, you don't do that to your brother. I felt like I was going to die. My father had told me that, my father, he thought that I was the best thing that has happened. All of a sudden, I was not so perfect. And my father touched my knee. That was heartbroken. I have never forgotten that. And I think that I was like 7 or 8 years old. And I haven't forgotten that. The day that my father said something that I wasn't a good girl. Yeah.
When you met Abuelo and you had my mom and like uncle and aunt, and then grandchildren, how was that experience like? And
Well, first of all, I met Abuelo 54 years ago in a costume party for Halloween. So imagine, I have never been a normal girl. I have always been unique, let's say. And I think I was dressed like Mary Poppins. And I met him like that. And I was having so much fun, just dressed like something funny. And my husband, he asked me, that guy that came through the door, he asked me to dance. I knew that I wasn't looking that good that day. So when he says, will you dance with me? I will say, me? No, you're mistaken. You want to dance with her. And he says, no, I want to dance with you. And I said, you're wrong. It's her. And he had to say, no, you dance with me. And he actually did it like that. Okay, so I started dancing with him, and that was the end of his life. Because from that moment on, it started our life. And 1.5 years later, we were married. This Tuesday, is going to be 53 years since we got married. Yeah, our anniversary. Which I don't think that he remembers, but we'll find out. I'll tell you on Tuesday. So, so after that, my children came. They are only 13 months apart, each of them. And soon after that, when they started to marry, within 1.5 years, 18 months, the 3 of them got married. So I had them boom like that, and I don't want to say got rid of them, but they married one like that too. And then my children started to have, every year I had a grandchild. Then your mother stopped right after your sister, Bella, and she stopped for a few years, and then you came. So I started the excitement of having grandchildren, and after you came 2 more, so all in total 7, and this is my life. And I am so happy and blessed because I don't know, that's what I wanted. When I was a little girl, I remember saying, I want to have children, and I want to have grandchildren. So far, so good. My bucket list is full. Yes.
what do you think is like your happiest or proudest moment
When I have had a
or
few,
moments?
I have had a few great moments in my lifetime, but I do remember the day that my daughter told me that I was going to be a grandmother. I mean, that day was so like there's no words. The excitement, the thrill, unique. And then after that came the second one, and it was so, and it has been like that for a while. And then participating in the life of my children, married children, adult children, it is fantastic because now I see them as human beings. Before they were only children, now they are grown human beings, and really surprises me when I see them acting, which is not an act, but real life, like mothers, like I was, I mean, for me, it's grand to see that. And then my grandchildren, I have enjoyed every moment of their lives, the many steps that they have taken from the moment that they smile and they started to walk and they started to go to school. I mean, everything has been, as many times I has repeated that 7 years. I tell you, it's been 7 years, no, 7 times, but every time has been exciting, and exciting is the best one.
What would you say is like the most important thing to you now, or things?
My family. There's no doubt. I cannot stress enough how important is my family under God, because I am very spiritual. For me, the center of my life is God, and I am very blessed with the family that I have, and there's no other word that I can say that will define my life better than that.
If you could go back to any specific age, which age would that be?
At this time of my life, I will say I will never go. I will never go. No, any time was good, but particularly my mother passed away when I was 15, so I would love to go sooner, earlier than that. So I would have enjoyed her different, knowing that she was not going to be around. I will enjoy her different, more like a companionship, not just like a mother. And then after my children started to get married and having children of their own, I enjoyed the little child so much that I would love to go one by one, starting with my children when they were little, and then started continuing with my grandchildren when they were little. So it has been, many times over.
What would you give like your younger self? Like if you had to give them a piece of advice, like you
My
when
younger
you're 15?
self, okay, finish your studies sooner when you're young, because I actually finished my studies after I was married, and it was very hard to go to school at night and having a full-time job and having 3 children at home, and they were teenagers when I went back to school, and it was very, very hard. My job was very stressful, very intense. So when I was at work, it was only work. And then when I had to study, I had to study at night before going to bed. And when you go to the house after working, you have to take care of everything that you have to do. You have to the children schooling, the clothes, the uniforms, the cooking, washing dishes, all of that. And then when everything was done, do your studies and everything. I remember one weekend in particular that math, I was having trouble with math, and I was going to have the big final test, and I couldn't handle it. But my husband, he's an accountant, and I told him that weekend, listen, this weekend you're going to sit with me. You're going to sit until you hear me saying everything in such a perfect way that you're proud of me. So you're not moving from that chair, just to go to the bathroom and eat if you have to. But that's it. And actually we did. And then I turned to my children and I said, listen, if a food is delivered, you will eat it this weekend, because I am not cooking and you are not going out. So if there is, and the only thing that they will deliver at that time, I think it was something like chicken, because there was, and today we have Uber, Gruber, whatever, but in those days there was nothing, and the only thing that they would deliver was something like chicken. I don't remember. That weekend, pizza they delivered too. That weekend we only ate chicken and pizza, because it was the only thing that was delivered. Other than that, and they couldn't leave, because I didn't want any worries about them. Where are they coming home on time? Are they fed? Are they dressed? Whatever. So that weekend was a quiet weekend, concentrating. So if I could, I would tell my young self, do it when you're younger, and don't wait to do it like I did when I was so complicated. My life was so complicated.
I'm Roger Rodriguez, and the questions that I was most surprised by was when I asked my grandmother if she can go back to any age, what would it be? And she described to me that she would rather go back instead of doing a fun time. She would rather go back to like spend time with her mom, because her mom died when she was 15 from cancer, and she would have rather spent time with her than have fun, and I found that meaningful. If you could ask the subject any question on this list, what would it be and why? Well, in some of my interviews, I kind of did go a little bit off the list sometimes, just because I wanted to know more about one of the questions that I had already asked, and I just wanted to go deeper into it. But I guess I would ask Roger Rodriguez, who's my dad, about his work and what his day-to-day life at work is, and the stresses of that, and how he keeps his stress from work separate from his home life, because he never really like lashes out or anything. And sometimes when I'm stressed, I'll give attitude to my parents, and I don't know. I'm sure he deals with stress in his job, and I would be curious to know how he manages that. What have I learned from the interviews that I conducted? I mean, I learned a lot about everyone I interviewed, and it was really insightful, and I thoroughly enjoyed interviewing every person that I interviewed, and I feel like I grew closer to every single person that I spoke to.